Hi, Lauren. Welcome to the call. Wow, look at everybody who's here. Jeremy, welcome. Marianne, nice to see you. Hey, Tracy, how are you?
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I see two different Tracys. I'm sorry. We've reached that number in our webinar invites, but a big welcome and hello to both of you. Sally, how distracting is that big white light in the background on a scale of 10?
I think it's a 2. I think you're fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Really happy to see everyone here. Excited for today.
This is our most popular webinar so far, right, Sally? In terms of signups?
We almost doubled the number of registrations this time.
Wow, that's great.
That's exciting. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm going to get set up. It's already 4 p.m. Eastern here. I would love for you all to have the slides that I'll be using for the session. So let me send you that link right now in the Zoom chat.
I'll be sending that periodically for, well, yeah, I guess everyone will already have it.
Great. So I'm using Google Docs. I'm using Google Slides. Yeah, thanks, Sally. If you can share it 4:05, 4:10, just to make sure everybody has it, even though if they're coming in late. And I can actually see the number of people who are on that. So if you want to click on that link, I like this slide deck because you don't have to feel it today like you have to write down every single thing that you wanted to keep track of. You'll have it after the session. And we always record these sessions, by the way, so that people can have them and watch them later. I think a lot of people register to the event because they want to know about the recording after. The best way to see all of the webinars that we do is on our YouTube page. We post all of them. So for those of you who use YouTube, feel free to click subscribe and they'll let you know. If you don't like subscribing, then just go check it out and go see what webinars are available there. Hi, Nicola, welcome. Hi, Becky. Great, so let's get started with just some quick intros. I'd love it if you could share your name, the school or institution or organization that you work with, and the city that you're in. And that's gonna get us warmed up to use the Zoom chat. So I'm gonna see, Brittany, you win first place for first message. Thanks for sharing. Would you mind telling us what HIEC is? Because there may be people discovering it for the first time.
Yeah, sure. HIEC is a acronym, I guess, for Halton Industry Education Council. We're a not-for-profit organization that serves the community in career development and career awareness programming and various other mentorship experiences.
That's great. Good pitch. Thank you. And you were ready, by the way. You were ready to do that on the spot. Very well done. So I'm going to share my screen with those instructions. Again, I would love people to share where they are, what school or organization they're connected with, and which city they're in. Dana in Lexington, welcome. I emailed Sherry Williams today in Lexington. I think we have 14 people in the waiting room. Sally, do you have
Thank you.
Sally, do you have waiting room power?
I do not, unfortunately.
Don't, eh? So I'm going to do that myself. Okay, so I just admitted about 17 people who had a very awkward minute of waiting. But welcome everybody who just joined. Laura, Derek, Effie, thanks for being here. Michelle, Maria, Nicola, Tracy, this is great. Christine, Krista, Jeffrey just joined. This is great. Well, I like it. You know, 4:04, I think it's a great time to start. And we'll catch up with everybody else as they keep rolling in. But we definitely have an exciting session for people today. By request, getting to experience the challenge mindset and the challenge cards themselves. I'm really excited to do this, so I hope you're excited as well. And if you would like to follow along with me in the Zoom chat, I've put a link to the slides that I'll be using for this session. And feel free to click on that link if you'd like to join me. Okay, so I'm going to start with something quite positive. I got an email today from a local school board here in Ottawa, a big user of the challenge mindset, who decided to use it with disengaged students. As you might already know, the challenge cards are used with people of all different ages, but in this particular case, it's used with high school students who are disengaged. Let me show you the email that was written to me, and tell me if you can relate to this type of transformation. So let's call this a case study. And I'll read it out to you. Suffice to say, the results are beyond exciting. The student prior to working with the challenge program was a non-attender, didn't go to class, disengaged, grade 11 age with only 8 credits. That's not a lot. Interested in being a makeup artist. Notice that that's a job title. Then my colleague made the comment that I didn't really think this could work, Cam, I really didn't. Now, the student's actually attending regularly, asking tons of questions, her own answers. They're completing a 5-credit package based on using the challenge program. So they've set up a special challenge program there at their school. This young person's now interested in exploring opportunities in the culinary arts. They've wondered about trying math and science again, as they believe this will be important based on their pathway. This might be my favorite part of the story, is that they understand now, oh, math and science will help me contribute to a challenge that I care about, which I think is really powerful. This person's asking about how to improve the quality of her work, aspiring to better grades, and she's looking for possible program opportunities in college. This is very powerful. This is a powerful transformation. I was so thrilled when I got this message. I sent it to Sally and Emma on my team. And I think that this is the reason that you're here. That's the reason that you came today, is because you've already made yourself transformations like these. You want to make transformations like these. That's what gets me really excited when I think about all the people who are on this call who are already making such a big difference, and you're looking to level up and get even better at what you do. I think that's fantastic, and I'm thrilled that you decided to come here. Okay, so that's our good news for today. Let me tell you about what this session's all about. My goal here is that you can experience the challenge mindset so you can help your students transform. If you've worked with 5 students or 5,000 students, this is for you. You're welcome here. I made this session so that it could apply to many different people. Some of you will use the challenge mindset with adults. Some of you will use it with students. Some of you just want to use it for yourself today. That's okay. You can do that. I hope I can share some one-on-one principles that you can adapt for the different groups that you work with. The reason it's important for me to say that is that today I'm not teaching you how to coach. Some of you have PhDs in counseling. I'm not pretending I'm going to give you a prescriptive form that's going to work for all students. This really relies on you as the dream enabler, the dream builder, the transformer. Danielle, I know those words are not perfect labels for the magic that you do yet, but you're the ones who make this come alive, whatever you want to call yourself, right? You're the one who make a difference. So I'm hoping I can give you some powerful language that you can use and modify to fit your needs. So to get you set up, I recommend you grab a notepad or a pen or a pencil to take notes. I don't usually say this, but the difference is today we're actually going to be doing an exercise, something very practical. I think it might be easier if you've got something to write things down with. Of course, you can always write on your computer, but you might want to do that on a piece of paper too. You're also encouraged to ask questions in the chat using the Zoom chat feature. Myself and Sally will be monitoring that for your questions, comments, encouragements. We're open. We want to know what you have to say. And this is especially important today because I want you to bring up why you think this won't work. why you think some students will resist, where you think you'll get stuck, because my job when you do that is to tell you, well, here's what the other brilliant members of the challenge mindset community are doing to solve that problem. You may come up with something that's never come up with before, and that would be good too, because we can address it in the moment. All right, I think we've set things up the right way. I want to get right down to our first activity. Before I do that, Sally, did I forget anything important here that I needed to share before we start?
No, everything seems good to me.
Okay. Oh my gosh, it's 4:10 and we're already going to start working. Let's start working. The first thing we've got to do is you have to choose a persona that you're going to work with today. Who's the person that you're going to help? Are you going to be doing this for yourself? One of my ideas, when Nicola, I think you brought this up last week, like let's experience it for ourselves. You can literally do the challenge card sort for yourself, or you can imagine doing it with a student. So I'm going to give you a bunch of options, okay? And I'm going to flesh out some personas that you can work with. So let me just share with you what I had in mind. You can pick a student that you typically see. So the first one is called Job Jasmine, and she needs to get a job. Maybe you work with Anxious Alex, who has no idea what they want to do. They feel lost. Or maybe you keep meeting Linear Lucy, okay? Linear Lucy says, what can I do with my major? You know, she always wants to do something related exactly to what she's already doing and sees the whole world in a linear way. Because you are such great transformation makers, you know that a transformation needs to happen for each one of these people. I've given you some examples to work with here. Job Jasmine, for example, she needs to get a job, but she's not going about it the right way. She's looking for the one perfect job, okay? She's looking to really find that one match, you know, for the rest of her life, when really she should be going about it differently. She should be creating exciting options to explore. And you might help her make this shift, by the way. Anxious Alex is a bit different. This person feels discouraged and stuck, and they need to be engaged in taking action. And that's a transformation that you can bring about with your coaching and with the challenge mindset. Now, Linear Lucy, she has a very narrow focus, and we want to help broaden her horizons. Okay, so these are the choices that you've got to make. I'll give you a couple more choices if this doesn't fit with who you usually help. What about helping mid-career Mel? Mid-career Mel says, I need a change. I just need to do something different. And maybe this person, when they come to see you, they're only focused on what's available, what's easy, or what is well paid. And you want to transform them. You want to help them focus on what's purposeful and impactful, because you know that this is going to make them a better job seeker, a better applicant, a better employee, and this is going to bring about huge benefits to them. There's one more option here. It's you. You can use yourself as the persona that you're working with today. You can identify your own problem and your own transformation that you want to make. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds now to think about the persona that you want to take on during this challenge, the person you want to help, whether it's yourself or one of these I've suggested. And I just want you to write down maybe the persona and the problem, just so you keep it in mind for the rest of the session. Let me give you 30 seconds to do that now. And while you're choosing, let me open up the floor for questions, comments in the chat. I want to make sure everybody understands what we're doing and that the instructions are clear. Oh, Stephanie, how did you know I wanted that? How did you know I wanted someone to say, yes, this is clear? You rock. Thank you for doing that. So let's do a little quick poll just to make sure everybody's done. Can you write down who you're picking? Write down Job Jasmine, Anxious Alex, Linear Lucy in the chat. Or maybe you can write down me. I'm doing it with me. So Laura, you're doing Anxious Alex, Linear Lucy. Those are the most popular ones so far. Let's see, Linear Lucy. Oh, mid-career Mel. Okay, we have no Job Jasmine yet. Wow. No job, anxious Alex, linear Lucy, job Jasmine, anxious Alex. You've met many students like them? Yeah, me too. Job Jasmine. Okay, a couple job Jasmine's good. That's good, Alice and Angie, because we need to talk about them too. I'm sure we all eventually work with a job Jasmine. Kathy, you're doing it for you. Good for you. You know what? There's 43 more messages. I can't read them all, but I'm glad everybody picked one. Fidelma, you made up your own practical Ruth. I'm so glad. That's great. There is that flexibility here for you to be able to do that. Sally, who did you pick, by the way?
I was gonna pick anxious Alex. Anxious Alex.
Yeah.
Alex, because all my friends are really anxious about
Okay,
their
good.
career path.
Great. Well, maybe you can help them afterwards. Okay. So speaking about this word transformation, let me show you some of my ideas with that. And Sally, we just had a few more people join. If you wouldn't mind sharing the deck with them. But when it comes to these transformations, this is some of the magic that people have done when using the challenge mindset. They've taken people from a state of discouragement to engagement and taking action. Look at the last one there. They've taken people who feel worthless and they've helped them discover that the world needs them. There are so many different problems, challenges, and opportunities to work on. And feel free to take a look at a deeper dive at this slide after this session, but this is some of the important work that we do. This is why our work is so valuable, because it brings out all these benefits. I wrote down one benefit here at the top, which is exactly Sparkpath's vision as a company. We want every student to create a path to meaningful work and taking ownership of their future. That's what we do. That's why we do what we do. It's really our reason for the whole organization. And another benefit is engaged students who know how to take action, better job seekers and employees. All of your different school institutions and organizations can benefit from this. And there are tremendous human and economic implications, you know, from taking someone from feeling worthless to knowing that the world needs them. They can have an impact, a positive impact on society. And I don't need to remind you of the value of the work that you do, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to get an email this morning saying this is changing people's lives. And it doesn't hurt for you to remember that you're making a huge difference in the work that you do. Okay, so we're going to do powerful work. How will we do it? We know who we want to help. Let's do it. So I'm going to use the anxious Alex example here. Okay, remember anxious Alex? She has no idea what she wants to do. She feels lost. He or she, by the way. They're discouraged and stuck, engaged in taking action is what we want them to be able to do. That's the transformation. So the first thing I'll want to do is to validate their problem. Okay, so I'm going to give you some language on how to do that. And the reason I'm taking time to do this is because I want to avoid one typical mistake that I made at the beginning and that I've seen a lot of other people make. Instead of reframing the problem, addressing the transformation and setting an objective, sometimes I used to get too excited and I would say, I know how to help you. I have these cards. I've got these challenge cards. And I would start talking about the challenge cards more than I would talk about the person I was helping. And that didn't translate. Like, they don't know what the cards are yet. And I'm taking away all the attention from them. So I'm hoping that you won't fall into the same traps that I fell into. And I've seen other people fall into that. So instead of focusing on me and my cards, I want to validate their problem. It sounds like you want a sense of direction. Did I get that right? Now, the best way to get a sense of direction is to create it instead of finding it. Some of your students think they'll find the best job for them just by looking under a rocks. If I look under enough rocks, I'll eventually find it. I don't think so. Not today. In today's world, you have to create options in front of you. There's a lot of reasons why the world of work is shifting to this new need. And then you can tell the person, I can help you with that. By the end of the session, my goal is to have you engaged in taking action. So you're already hinting at the transformation in a clear, concise way. I think this is a great way to frame the start of the exercise. Now, after you set intentions, you can start giving the instructions for what's going to happen next. The first step is to identify the challenges you want to work on. To do this, you're going to sort through different challenges, and you will get to choose the ones that interest you the most. Let me show you. So one question I get often at this stage is, I like that approach, but I don't work one-on-one. I work in groups. What I would encourage you to do if you work in a group is to frame it the same way. If you'd like, you can even use the same avatars that I used, but you should play that back to what your class is reflecting. If you're teaching a grade 10 careers course, maybe you'll make some different personas that represent your students as best as you think, and you'll reframe how you'll solve their problem that way. Maybe you're running a workshop in university about how to get a job. So your personas will be about, well, how do you land an internship? How do you write your cover letter? And you'll use the challenge mindset to help with that. So I still believe that this approach can be tailored to working with a group. And a lot of people, of course, use the challenge mindset with groups. Having said that, let me pause here for a moment. I'm about to give you the instructions for you to literally to go do the card sort using our site, our platform. We're all set up to host you and welcome you to do that. But before I do that, what else have you said to your students, those of you who have already used the challenge cards, what have you said to your students that has either worked very well to introduce the challenge cards or has not worked at all and caused you to transform your approach? Let me know if you want to unmute and share with the group, or if you'd like to share in the chat. I'm just going to take a second to pause and see if that generates any ideas for you. Okay, Stephanie, want you to think about what you want to change in the world or see more of in the world. That's good. And Stephanie, what's your age group? Just to give people context for this. I think it's a great prompt, by the way.
Probably the same, grade 10 to second year university.
Great. I'm glad you said that, because there's some people that said you can't say that, Stephanie, to a young person. They won't know. My experience has been that it's different. There's a lot of young people that they're primed. They've already have ideas about this. They are ready to do that. They're able to do that. What about you? What do you find? Are young people able to do this, to answer your prompt?
Yep, definitely. They're quite passionately, actually.
Yeah, it always surprises me, but I like to think that we live in a world where a 15-year-old who invests 45 minutes of time researching something online can surpass my knowledge of an important challenge in the world, right? That's the reality that we live in. So therefore, we are no longer matchmakers. I hope those of you who felt like you still needed to hold that label, you will shed this label. We're no longer matchmakers who know all the 20,000 job titles in the world of work and the ones that are coming in the future. We're guides, we're catalysts, we're dream enablers that help students build their dreams. So they need to take ownership of that. So that's great. Okay, so I like that prompt, Stephanie, and in my experience too, they're able to think about that. I just don't like asking like, what's the problem you want to solve in the world? I've had a lot of roadblocks with that, and that's why I made the challenge card, so that they don't have to like come up with it out of thin air. They can actually choose. I'll give them examples to get their minds thinking about it. So let me see Tracy here. I wanted students to reach out to sectors that they were interested in and do an interview to find out more. This needs to be planned early in career course because it takes time to hear back. You're right. I think that students often struggle to know, well, who do I reach out to? And I think that's where the challenge mindset and picking problems that you're interested in starts off really well. Danielle, I tell them it's okay not to decide for the rest of your life, that there will be many versions or chapters of your life, that this is more about thinking about a next step, far less overwhelming and frightening. You're right. You know, I created this approach to help people think flexibly about the future, to help people realize they'll work on several different challenges over the course of their lives. And there's something to be celebrated about that, because they get to grow as people throughout those transitions. Sometimes people take it too literally, right? They just replace the challenge mindset with the job title mindset. So they say, okay, it's not about job titles, it's about picking the one challenge. And so my joke is, okay, well, get a tattoo of your top challenge, you know, on your arm. Of course you shouldn't, because it will change. And your comment highlights that, Danielle, which is great. Catherine, agreed, using cards, but need to get to that next step. Right, Jeremy, you're not going to understand how this will talk about your future career until we're almost done. Do you think you can trust me until it makes sense? It's a leap of faith, isn't it, Jeremy, right? Like it's a leap of faith for students to trust or work with you, and you've got to develop that relationship. And in my experience, Jeremy, you do not need to say this to every student, but there is a student where you could tell this is what you need to tell them for them to keep going. And I bet you have the judgment to know which is which. Mindy, I tell students that it's easier to think in terms of challenges versus specific positions. Let's look at this, your major's interest, and see where there's some intersectionality. Think about what challenges you want to tackle. I like the word easier because I agree with you. I think it is easier, even though it's a new way of doing things for them. I think it does end up being easier. Brittany, I want students to feel liberated to make their own career path decisions as opposed to following archaic myths they've been told. That's fantastic. I like that too, because those myths often hold them back. The other day on LinkedIn, I asked people, what bad advice have you received in your career? And I was blown away by what they had been told, by the career myths and how much it had hurt them. You didn't write that too well. There's no points for grammar on these webinars. There's points for love, energy, enthusiasm, and participation, Jeremy. So you're doing fine. You're doing great. Mindy, you also tell students that we can just think about the next 30. That's great. Okay, listen, I can't resist to go see what you have to say, but I know we want to move forward and do this activity, this exercise together. So I'm going to get started, give you the instructions you need to get set up to be able to do this. And then I'm going to go back and read your comments and synthesize them. So here's what we'll do. I've got some pretty clear instructions in my slides for how you're going to do this. And we are here to help you with all of the tech help. So just to give you at a high level, what you'll be able to do is that you'll go on our site, which is app.mysparkpath.com. If you're in our slides, I think that's hyperlinked, so that'll save you a step. And then you'll create a student account, not a school account, not an admin account. You'll create a student account. It's going to ask you for different information, very simply, like your name and your email, and you'll need a special access code. And Sally made this for you, web with JP. And then you'll follow the instructions and sort the challenge cards. By step 2, you'll need 5, 10, or maybe 12 minutes to sort the cards. And then we'll get back together and you'll let me know when you've downloaded the challenge profile. So some of you are very tech savvy. You're already in the platform and you're working. Some of you have never used this before. And you'll want us to walk you through step by step. Sally and I are here to help you. We'll make sure that this is easy. So could someone in the chat please let me know, number 1, when they've successfully logged in with that access code? Number 2, if you're stuck and you don't know how to get to one of the steps, please let us know and we'll be able to help. Okay, Karima, you were first, or Ali was first. Laura, okay, good. The 3 of you are in. So we know that the web with JP code works. So here's what I encourage you to do. Oh, and Eugenie, you don't have the slides, eh? You know what? Sally will send you the slides, so you'll be able to do that. So what I recommend for Ali, Karima, and Laura, go ahead and do step 2. I want you to sort through the challenge cards. And then I want you to let me know when you're finished and you've downloaded your challenge profile. In my experience, it's best to do this quietly, with not me talking while you're working. So once everybody's set up, I'm actually going to be quiet and I'll let people work. So I'll answer questions first. Stephanie, you look like you might have a question.
So you go to the app page and then do you go to login or sign up, or where do you input that code?
Sign up is the first step. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I did sign up, but I didn't get any. Oh, maybe I didn't do everything. Let me see.
Can I ask you a question? So I'm doing this on my computer.
I just missed, sorry, whoever's speaking, I can't hear you. Can you try again?
Mindy.
Oh,
Can
hi,
you hear me
Mindy, I
now?
can hear you now.
Okay, right. So I'm doing this on my computer because the app on stuff on my phone is not working. And so I logged in and I got to the page where it says, like the opening page says, discover the challenges you want to work on. And so I clicked and now I'm in logging and it's login and it says email address. And I typed in my email address and I typed in the password that was on your screen, web with JP.
So great, Mindy, I'll jump in right here because I know exactly what happened. I don't want you to log in. I want you to sign up. Log in is for people who have already created accounts, and sign up is for you who have not created accounts yet.
Okay, you want me to sign up as a student, right?
Correct, exactly.
Oh, that's the key there. I signed up as an admin and then it didn't work.
Okay, and then the code is web with JP. Am I correct?
Yes, access code. Yeah,
Okay.
JP,
yes.
can I make a quick comment? Some people have actually already had a school account or have already tried the tool that way. So if you've already tested out the tool, or if you already have a school account, please create an account with a different email. Yeah, I think that'll help a few of you. Thank you.
That's a great point. So, and Sally, can you help Stephanie one-on-one?
Yes.
Because she created a school account.
Yeah, Stephanie, I'll get to you.
I'm there now. I've got it figured out. I think I'm in the right place now. Sally.
Great, thank you.
Okay, great. So let's call this a
Monday, yeah.
halfway mark
you.
for people. We've got a couple people that downloaded their profile, so thanks for letting me know that you're finished. For the rest of you, take your time. We're going to take another 4 or 5 minutes to be able to do this, and then I'll tell you how long it typically takes students to do it, what your options are for how you want them to do it. But I just want to give you a bit more time, those of you who have just started. And if you haven't done it or you're still stuck, please message Sally and I. We'll be able to help you.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
Are there cards in here that are not in this original deck that we purchased?
Yes, there are. The first deck that we made, the challenge cards, has 29 cards. And we added a set of skilled trades cards
Okay,
to bring the total to 53.
okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I think we've got about 20% of people who are finished. So if you want to take another 90 seconds, a minute or two, if you're not done yet, and then we'll get talking about how to debrief the results, which is, I think, the most important part of our session today. Okay, big breath. I wish I could have given you even more time for this. I wish I could have watched you do the exercise. At this stage, the reason I said that this moment now, the debrief is the most important part of the session, is because in my experience, your facilitation, your debrief, the questions that you ask, the answers that the student articulates make or break this exercise. That means, will this be just another task that they had to do because they were told to, or will this generate, catalyze the transformation that they need to make to take ownership of their future? Let's find out. Now, to do this, can you remind yourself of the persona you chose? Who are you helping right now? Remember this person, the problem, and the transformation they need to live. And keep that in mind as you answer the following questions. Now, to answer these questions, I'll give you two options. Number one, you can actually write in the chat, just like if we were having a conversation or you were amongst peer coaches that were helping you. Number two, you can write down your answer on a piece of paper. Those of you who have a journaling practice or a handwritten notes practice, you're going to enjoy doing your debrief and thinking by writing. So those are your two choices. As a reminder, number one, you can answer in the chat. Number two, you can write down your own answers. The first question after the challenge cards exercise is, how did it go? So can you tell me, how did it go? I love reading your comments. Kathy, it was easy and hard. I think this is great. In this first step, the reason we have to ask, how did it go, is because students have to take ownership of this process. When I don't ask, how did it go, it feels like they're looking at me like I'll explain what to do next. I'll show them how these things work. How did it go means you're starting to tune into their experience. And we're going from an era where people could rely on companies having ownership of their careers and moving them through the ladder. In the future, we're talking about CEO of Me Incorporated. We're talking about free agent nation. People will have to own and change and make a lot of decisions around their whole career. This one question tunes into this very important transformation that all these people need to make. So that's the number one reason that we want to ask, how did it go? Is that they start taking ownership of this process. I know what it's like not to ask these questions, and I know how bad it can start off the debrief. That's the first reason. There's a second reason I asked, how did it go? Notice what some of the people said in the chat. For some of them, it went so well. It's important to empathize with positive emotions to connect and build that relationship with people, whether it's in a group or one-on-one. And some people had obstacles. They lived something very difficult. The anxiety that they had coming into this session was exacerbated during the exercise because they might have felt overwhelmed. They felt like it was hard to pick the three. They felt like they had to do even more, give more. These are normal objections. I don't even know what the word normal means, but I guess I should rephrase. I should say these objections are expected. Our expertise is to help people with objections, help people who are struggling. So people coming up with objections at this stage is what we would want, what we want to see. And we have to deal with these individually before we can get them to move on and address even more important issues. So I won't be able to do that for each person individually today, but I do want to address a couple of them that come up quite often. Some people say, it's hard to choose. It was hard to pick my top three. And this is normal because we're literally thinking our persona might be someone who has too many options, right? So what do you say to someone who wants to do everything? Well, you could come up with your favorite line, but one of mine is, you can't work on all the challenges at the same time. You can't work on all the challenges at the same time. That resonates with students. There's nobody that comes back to me and says, you know what? Yes, I can work on all 53. Nobody thinks that. At least if you did, you wouldn't be very good at them. And everyone knows that you should be good in your career, and they understand the importance of focus. At the same time, going back to Danielle's comment, we're not choosing 3 challenges for the rest of our lives. We're choosing 3 exciting, inspiring challenges to start exploring now, so that we start building out our possibilities, our future self possibilities. So that's one clear objection that I think we should take on. Sally, I don't know if you got a chance to read what everyone said. Any other themes coming out, like a similar challenge or issue that I should address before we move on?
For some people it was really easy, and some people it was hard. Did you have any perhaps tips when it's a little bit, like when students are doing it too fast? Should we take the time to get them to rethink it, or should they really follow their intuition?
I love that question because I have to tell you, making you do the card sort in a group webinar is one of the most intense possibilities, intense ways of doing the exercise. And that type of intensity has advantages and disadvantages. It has advantages because it gets people together, you can debrief together, you see other people are working on it, you get it done by a certain time, it gets accomplished. The disadvantages, I think, are obvious. I'm talking to you while you're sorting the cards. How annoying is that? Okay, I'm answering questions, I'm giving you time limits. What I noticed in creating the digital version is I think people take 2 to 3 times longer to do the digital version versus the physical version. I'll say that again because it really surprised me. I did not expect it at all. The design is so user-friendly, I was scared people would click through it too quickly. We're now able to measure how long it takes people to do it online, and it takes on average 9 to 12 minutes. Some people take 20 or 25 minutes. And I've seen people do the physical version way quicker than that. So I actually like that. So some of you who are designing workshops, you may get your students to do it before your workshop, during your workshop, or afterwards. They all have different pros and cons. Going back to your question about speed, Sally, I really like letting people drive. I don't often tell them to slow down or speed up. And what I learned early on is that I want to celebrate intuition at this stage. We don't leave a lot of space currently in our model for intuitive thinking. We celebrate analytical thinking, and that tends to lead to linear approaches. So if your students are only looking at the pictures as their guiding light at this stage, I think that's okay. The analytical portion will come next through our analysis. Thanks, Sally. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. I'm going to save your chat and go back and read all these wonderful comments, but there's quite a few more things that I want to share. We did question 1, how did it go? Simple, innocuous question with huge implications. Let me give you number 2. Tell me which challenge you picked and why. Tell me which challenge you picked and why. And I know for some of you it was hard to pick 3, but for this one, I would encourage you to pick 1. It's even harder, right? Tell me why you picked that 1 card. Maybe you're going to be faster than other people on the call and you'll want to write something about all 3. Go for it. I'm going to give you a minute to do this. But why did you pick that challenge? This is a key question because it taps into meaning, purpose, and fulfillment, which is something I don't know how many students have been invited to think about their futures that way. What do they think about instead? What are the opportunities in the market? You know, what's hot? What are hot jobs? Well, we're telling them maybe for the first time that you get to choose and you have to develop this inner compass that helps you choose. And now you're getting them to verbalize that, articulate that. Some of them will have very short answers, some of them will have very long answers. This would be a great time in your workshop to separate people, put them into small groups of 2 or 3, and have them go back and forth and share and listen to somebody else's example. If you're working one-on-one and you get the chance to ask this live to a person, you're going to listen to some beautiful gems. You're going to hear their story. You're going to hear their values, their interests, their skills, their strengths. And this raw material will be what you will use to help accelerate the transformation that you wanted earlier on. You remember that transformation that you identified for the persona? By connecting that with these nuggets of information, truths about the person that will help you personalize, customize the transformation in words that they know, hear, and understand and what's important for them. Okay, so we've asked 2 questions. How did it go? Tell me which challenge you picked and why. For some of you who are assigning this as a research project, for some of you who are assigning this as an assignment before they get to meet with you one-on-one, you might get them to write about this, a minimum of 100 words, you know, whatever you think is a good assignment for the person that you're working with. If you wanted to go even deeper and listen for more story, more values, more skills, you could ask a follow-up question such as, when it comes to this challenge, what difference do you want to make in the world? Okay, so when it comes to this challenge, what difference do you want to make in this world? This allows you to go even deeper. Another question that I like here is, what skills do you have that could contribute? And what skills do you have that could contribute? Now you start to make it personal and the person identifies their skills. So if you want to answer one of those 2 questions, I'm going to give you a moment to do that now. And I'll just remind you that all of these questions I've got in my slide deck that you've got access to.
Can you repeat those two questions?
Yeah, they're in the slide deck that I sent, but if you'd like to hear them again, I asked, when it comes to this challenge, what difference in the world do you want to make? And what skills do you have that could contribute? So take a moment to finish writing down your thoughts for that one, and then we're going to move on. Jesse, which slide am I in the deck? I am at slide 17 right now. So let's tie this back together for our original persona of Alex, okay? Alex said they have no idea what they want to do. And we wanted to help them get engaged in taking action. So I might say, you spoke with great interest about the challenge of reverse engineering the brain. Is this a direction you would like to pursue further? Do you see how I'm pointing out clearly that having no idea, having no direction, and now having a challenge that you care about is part of having a direction. So I'm addressing the original problem that they brought up. And now we want to prepare the transformation. You can get clear on how do you want to work on this challenge, with who, and what you need to learn to be able to do that. And let's decide what actions you will need to take to be able to do this. And as you might already know, with the challenge profile, we have a set of exercises, activities that helps them think through all of these different steps. Which challenges you care about, which companies are working on them, who works there, and what did they have to learn to be able to do that. All of a sudden, Alex is building a meaningful map to potential paths that she can take to work on the challenges that she cares about the most. And it doesn't always have to be anxious Alex. When I was prepping for this webinar, I thought about Thomas, a student that I met who was in law school. We actually filmed the coaching session with Thomas. And, you know, it felt like he was doing it as a favor for us, you know, and he kind of said, well, I'm in law school. You know, I'm good. Like, I already know what I want to do. Like, what else do I need to do? And in my mind, the transformation he needed to make was that he needed to take ownership for what he wanted for his future, to start exploring and start creating his path. And that was a big shift because he thought, like, I've got it set. And can you imagine, like, you know, being a lawyer and being in law school is one of those classic linear paths. Everything is laid out and you have to follow, right? And it doesn't feel like you have a lot of personal choice. We also know about the huge amount of dissatisfaction a person can have, you know, when you're just told what to do constantly. So what this person got, Thomas, out of the exercise is that they got to choose what type of law they would like to be into. They started thinking about, which challenges do I want to solve with my legal skills? What firm would be a right fit for me? Which lawyers should I be meeting with now to start getting a better understanding of what potential paths are available to me? So that's the transformation that he was able to make, given that way that we work. Okay, let me pause here. Sally, how are we doing on questions in the chat?
I think we're good
We're good.
in terms of questions, yeah.
Could you find Mindy and send her the link to the slides of the deck?
Of course.
Okay, great. Good. Okay, so what I want to do for the next 2 or 3 minutes is take questions from people about that way of doing it, the language that we used, how you could use it with your students. I know that some of you have to sign off at the top of the hour, so I'm going to leave you a link to leave us feedback on this webinar. Some of you have follow-up questions. At the very least, I would love to have your feedback on how useful today was. Did we go too fast? Did we go too slow? What did you like the most? What did you like the least? I'm going to read everything that you say to make sure that these webinars are worth your time. So if you could take 2 or 3 minutes to fill out that survey about the Sparkpath webinar that I just put in the chat, I would really appreciate it. Sally would as well. So Gail, you asked, you've not used the cards before. Do high school students buy into the challenge of bettering the world? I think bettering the world is one way to use the challenge mindset. Some people have a challenge that's more narrow, more practical, more immediate than changing the whole entire world. For them, the kind of mission aspect of this won't necessarily resonate. But at the end of the day, in whatever job that they take, they're going to need a problem solver. they're going to have to be a problem solver. So for the vast majority of students, I would say, yes, it does resonate, Gail. But for others who that's too big, they can take on more immediate challenges that resonate with them that don't have to do with the rest of the world. Eugenie, you want to know about the options for online cards and pricing? We have different pricing models depending on the size of your school. If you get together with Sally, she'll be able to tell you what works best for you based on what you're doing. We've got some high schools, colleges, universities, and private career coaches that are using it. Yeah, Eugene, you're not the only one. We've got plenty of independent people or organizations that are working with the digital cards. Okay, what other questions, comments do we have? Things that you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about yet? Jeremy, with younger and with students who need pre-teaching, it's great to have an assistant who understands their prompt needs and who will not fill in the blanks for them. Very good point. Sally will send you her email, Leah. Great. Well, it looks like we're doing good on questions. What about comments? What about from other people who have used the challenge cards and have debriefed with them people? What would you add to what was shared today? Stephanie, feel free to jump in.
So I've been using them in my coaching practice, and there is some overlap, right, in some of the jobs across some of the cards.
Yes.
So I guess as I get more comfortable with the cards and more familiar, I'll be able to pick those out. But I just wondered if there's a quick hack on that. You know what I mean? Like, seeing teacher, mentor, coach in a few, or because, I had a student, she had 10 that she really was very interested in, and a lot of them had some overlap. So you know how it is, you want to pick the top 3 and narrow it down, but some actually overlap. So I'm wondering if there's a batching or something, if you've got that quick fix on that or not.
Yeah, well, let's talk about batching or matching or making connections on purpose, and for those that do overlap and for those that don't, because a lot of great users of this, they make connections between cards that don't have an immediate obvious connection. And that's actually a powerful way to help students get out of the linear way of looking at the world. So I would encourage you to do that instead of trying to limit it. In your case, I don't want to assume I know what the issue was. Was it for the student that had too many options, or was it for you to try to anticipate which connections you can make between the cards?
Well, she picked 10 cards, a lot of them around helping people, future leaders and potential and all of that. Yeah. And I just thought, I know there's going to be some, when you look in the back, that have some overlap. So as I learn the cards, I'm going to see that, but I just didn't know if you had a like a handy tool that, or not catalog them somehow or something, but
I don't.
There's an opportunity there, because there's you could kind of batch them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, the first batching we did was color-based, right? Based on some of the colors with similarities, but even with those colors, there's enough differences and similarities for us to separate them. Yeah. Thanks for asking your question. I'm going to think more about that, Stephanie, and I'll come back to you. So let's do this. It's 4:59. Some of you have to go. Some of you can stay. I'm going to stay for those who can stay for another 5-10 minutes. For those of you who have to go, I want to say a big thank you for the work that you do in transforming students. It's really important. It's needed. Thank you. And thanks for coming today. Your attention and trust is worth a lot. So we appreciate you showing up. And thanks for filling out that survey as a follow-up. We love hearing what you think about the webinar. So thank you for coming. Okay, so big thank you. Yes, there's a couple questions. You're welcome. A couple questions I got here that I don't want to lose. Michelle, any suggestions if you're using the cards for individuals with visual impairment? Any strategies to make them more accessible? That's a good question. We're working with a large university now to meet their accessibility requirements. We met them for quite a few universities. If you're using the digital version, Michelle, you might know that you can use the tab function. to get pretty far through the exercise. We're trying to perfect that. So if you want to email us, I can tell you where we're at in the stage of making that even stronger. But I'm hoping that we'll be approved at the highest level of accessibility standards for people to be able to use it with different visual impairment levels. And one question I got about that process, I don't know if this is what you're asking, Michelle, is that can people who don't see still do this? And the answer to me is absolutely. I know that the images are a powerful tool to the approach, but that certainly doesn't mean only people who can see the images can do this exercise. I don't think that at all. I think anyone can learn the challenge mindset, absolutely. I had a good one from, oh, so many good questions here. Lacey, at what point do you address not focusing on the career titles and the card descriptions? That's good. Actually, Danielle messaged me about that because we found a way to hide that in the digital version where the sample careers, you have to click on it, which helps students a little bit more focus on what's the real problem at hand. So that's been a difference maker from what I've heard. In your case, you say, for example, I'll be doing a session with students in data analytics class and wonder at one point to bring up that many of the cards will have titles that don't resonate, but are just a few of the examples. I think that as soon as someone brings that up as a question or an objection, you can set them up for that. But just a simple introduction that we're going to focus on challenges and not job titles really gets most students engaged, and they're willing to try that out at the beginning. That tends to work quite well. Laura, as a parent trying to get my 3 teenage boys to think about careers, I find they're not very focused and don't know what they want to do. They also feel overwhelmed about having to make choices for courses that will affect their options. These cards are a great jumping off point for discussions on what they might like to do and how one like finance can have so many career options. This was helpful to have some prompts to keep them on track. That's great, Laura. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that example with your guys. I had one question privately. How do you process with students who put not interested to all the challenges? What I'd want to know is, has that happened? I used to get that question all the time about the physical cards, and it just wouldn't happen. Like, it was a hypothetical question. What if this does happen? If this did happen, please let me know. I'm going to record this, but for the most part, that hasn't happened to me, or no one's told me that that's actually happened. It was more of a fear that it could happen. In the digital version, if someone does the whole thing and is not interested, the system will prompt them to say, listen, like, can you take a second look? We want to see what you're interested in. So there's like kind of a software help with that. I would say if you're working with someone who's facing a huge set of obstacles, really demotivated, maybe that could happen. And then maybe you could find a different way to show them challenges that they're working on by finding out what some of their interests are, what they read, what YouTube channels they watch, what apps they use on their phone. And I would just start with those examples and say, listen, to make that game, to make that game, what challenges are people thinking about? What are they trying to solve? Who was involved in doing that? So I would teach them challenge mindset in a very personalized way if they needed that prompt. But again, I don't know how many people you'll meet that will pick nothing out of all the digital challenge cards. Any suggestions with using these with internationally trained professionals? I hear a lot of people do. One of the first examples of this, someone told me that they actually use it like a book, meaning instead of like pick all the cards, they said read all the cards, sort of as an immersion exercise into like the labor market here, which I think is a cool twist on the activity. I wouldn't recommend that for everyone, but for the right person. I've done small bits of work with internationally trained professionals early in my career, and the fascinating part was that the people that were part of the training sessions were so much more educated than we were in terms of formal education. So reading levels were super high. So maybe that would work as a reading exercise to read the challenge cards. So maybe not a bad idea. Okay, a lot of great thank yous, a lot of great energy. I really appreciate the people's thank you messages. Sally, any questions pop up that I missed that you think were particularly insightful?
Well, one question that I think is interesting that I probably would ask, if anyone is interested in watching this after or rewatching the webinar, we'll be having it on our YouTube channel later
I got a question about, is it possible to separate the challenge cards or trades cards in the online version? It's not. We really encourage for the physical version for them to be used together. And it's the same thing for the digital version, so they can't be teased out. Okay. I mean, Sally, you're gonna have to give me a report card on how I did in terms of answering questions. What am I, like 20%? Like this is the reality, I guess, of a bigger webinar. Great news. I'm thrilled about everyone who came, but just my percentage of being able to answer questions is much lower, so I have to digest that. Here's a
You might
few.
be failing.
I might be failing. Well, it depends on how you define fail.
That's true.
Marianne, after asking what challenge and why, is there another question? There's a couple of them. And Sally, if you wouldn't mind sending Marianne the educator guide that has a longer list of questions. I like what difference do you want to make in the world when it comes to that? I like what skill do you have that could contribute? And there's a couple more that educators suggested to me that I thought, wow, that's got to be top of the list. So I added those to the educator guide. Maria, I don't have a talk like the TEDx that speaks to students. That talk speaks to you, a little bit to parents, but mostly to you, which I would call experts in the field. But I definitely want to make one eventually. My hope would be in a post-COVID environment to do it in a classroom with students with kind of like live interaction. So that's what I'm hoping to build in the future. Great question. So Christine, you bring up a great point. How do you start this conversation with students who choose a card that may not be related to their major? What a gift. You know, finally, you're the first person that's going to show them this. First of all, celebrate this moment. I know it's painful. It's going to hurt them, but you're talking to someone who's about to work for 40 or 60 years, right? It's great that they learned that now instead of later. I would start by showing them, regardless of how far the major and the challenge may seem. Show them the value of that major. How does that help you contribute to the challenge that you care about? They might already know. You could ask them, or you could come up with a couple of examples. Let's do one together. English Lit major. This is a person who can write, who's been trained in critical thinking, maybe even research, I don't know, depends on the format of the undergrad. Those skills apply to nearly every challenge that's out there. So maybe you could give them a concrete example of that. That's how I would start the conversation, sort of in an abundance frame of mind rather than a scarcity frame of mind. Leanne would love the educator guide. Sally, if you could send Leanne as well. A lot of great thank yous. Thanks, everybody else. Listen, the last time we did this, we stayed 45 minutes longer, which I would, and Sally's like, oh, that was a really long time. I said, yeah, but I would stay an hour, you know, because I think it's the people who are on this call are so great. But Sally and I both have a call with different people in Singapore, not even the same people, at 8 p.m. tonight. So I told Sally, you can't stay the whole time because you have to rest and get ready for your call. And I asked my wife, at what time can I come home? And she said, as soon as possible. So we've got a little baby at home, so I'm not going to stay longer today, but I'll do one last round and check in with people, questions, comments, things we haven't talked about yet before we sign off. Luann, how might students tie the use of these cards to developing new habits? Well, for me, the habit formation will be in service of something. And you know, clearly in service of your growth, your ability to become a better person, to have a bigger impact. But for me, what I would frame is, you know, like you want to become a better writer. To become a better writer, you need to write. You can learn about writing, but writing might be more important. Your new habit is scheduling writing. How will that new habit help you in the future? You know, how will it contribute to a challenge that you want to solve? That's how I would make the connection between those two things. Oh, that's great, Danielle. I love it when you come and tell us about this. And you guys just did one that was a big success. That's great. That's great. And Wendy also asked for the educator guide. Good. All right. Big thank you, everybody, for coming. Can't wait to do the next one. I hope you'll be there again. We'll be saving this and uploading it to YouTube. And we'll catch you at the next webinar, probably in 1 or 2 months. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. All the best.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, JP.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.